Let's bring in Alexey Muraviev, who's an Associate Professor of National Security and Strategic Studies at Curtin University. He's on the line from Perth in Australia. Welcome to you. We heard the situation outlined there. We know that European countries have pledged greater support for Ukraine, but the US, its biggest backer, now seems to be reducing its support. Do you think we're going to see short-term impact on the battlefield because of that?
Not in the immediate term, because I believe that the Ukrainians managed to stockpile a certain amount of munitions. I think the capacity to defend the cities or strategic targets from aerial and missile attacks would be further curtailed. Already the Ukrainians struggle to neutralize incoming threats simply because the Russians increase operational tempo. They deploy more drones in the aerial strikes. They intensify their attacks. They happen in almost like every second day, sometimes every day, and the scale of those attacks is expanding. So that goes against the growing number of depleting stockpiles of surface-to-air missiles. So I think this is where one would see immediate effect. If this suspension of the provision of high-precision munitions, including for such systems like the HIMARS, for example, or 155 mil howitzers would continue over extended period of time, I think we would start seeing the effects on the battlefield maybe in a few months' time.
So perhaps not short-term impact, perhaps long-term impact. If you're Vladimir Putin and you hear this news, how do you think he might act to try and take advantage of the situation?
Look, I think Vladimir Putin is getting this news not from the media, but from his intelligence sources, because if we believe US media reporting, that decision was made back in early June. So I think the Russians would have probably learned by then and would be making their calculations accordingly. Clearly, it's a sign for Putin that his war of attrition is taking toll on Western allies. I think he would consider this as a sign that Trump is not prepared to support Ukraine unconditionally. I think the war in the Middle East, the confrontation in the Middle East, and the drainage of resources that Israel has incurred in its 12-day war with Iran has also directed a lot of attention and made the Americans recalculate their own capacity to replenish stocks. We need to remember that NATO continues to struggle to effectively match what the Russian war production capacity generates already. And I think that there is a recognition of that. And final point that I want to make, perhaps it's also one of Trump's tactics to force Zelensky, to persuade Zelensky to be more cooperative, because despite some positive progress in personal relationship between Trump and Zelensky, occasionally Trump continues to make this reference, maintains this narrative that Zelensky, in his view, is one of the problems why peace hasn't been negotiated. He obviously fires at Putin from time to time, but he constantly makes references saying that Ukraine is in trouble and Ukraine is one of the reasons why peace hasn't been negotiated. So perhaps it's another way how to push Ukrainians towards a political solution rather than an expectation that somehow, things on the battlefield can be turned in their favor.
That's a really interesting point you make, Alexey. Perhaps this is a tactic to try and make Volodymyr Zelensky sort of more susceptible to giving up some of the Ukrainian territory. But on the flip side of that, if you're Vladimir Putin and you see your army holding its own, not being forced out of the territory it's taken in Ukraine, and now you see the support for your opponent is getting less, not more, and Putin's been reluctant to make any kind of deal whatsoever, why would Vladimir Putin not now go, well, I don't need to make a deal? The longer this goes on, the stronger my position becomes.
But that's effectively what Russia's position has been all this time, because whilst the Kremlin has been continuously making positive noises saying, yes, we are ready to settle down, we are ready to reach a settlement, it always comes with, but there are some sort of nuances, there are some sort of details, that there is a need for some fine-tuning that need to be worked out. So it's not like the Russians saying, okay, we kind of ready to walk away from the full thrust confrontation and into political negotiations. They effectively sending mixed signals, saying, yeah, we're willing to negotiate, but on our terms. And for as long as this narrative will be maintained, the Ukrainians will continue to resist, and Putin will use this time to grab more of Ukraine's territory. Yes, Russia has been making slow advances, but we also need to remember that sometimes the quality of the advance cannot just be measured in the amount of territory is captured at any given time. For example, by now the Russians secured 50% of Ukraine's lithium deposit mines. So whilst they may be making progress at the tortoise pace by capturing several villages a week, but what they may be grabbing at the same time is far more significant than just, accumulating more chunks of Ukrainian territory.
Alexey, it was really interesting to get your perspective on this. Thank you. Alexey Muraviev, Associate Professor of National Security and Strategic Studies at Curtin University.
Thank you.